For this episode of Better Futures, I will interview our friendly neighborhood Joe, who responded to the public communication that you see before you now. I hope that you enjoy.
Welcome to Better Futures.
Would you like to introduce yourself in any way? I can ask, hi, who are you?
Nah, I'm good.
My preferred method right now is just to interview other people and talk as little as possible, actually. So to find out as much shit that I had not considered before.
Yeah. You're like, hey, speak your truth.
The intermediary, allowing them to speak their truth.
Like, I'm going to try to get in the way as little as possible.
Anonymity has merit.
It is pretty opposite, right? Your mistakes might be able to go out that way too. You know what I mean? Like, you flub something and then everybody sees it because it was broadcast to China on a live video or something, right? But it is all well-intentioned.
There is value in abstracting.
Exactly. It makes it more accessible for other people to relate with these concepts as well, because if you take out those personal details, now maybe I will relate this to whatever it is.
Absolutely. Personal details can sometimes become the meaning and importance of it is completely lost. There are just so many different avenues that can take, and certain avenues alienate other people just because of differences in experience.
Right. I remember having a conversation quite a long, it was a little while ago, but basically it had to do with the feeling that just nobody cares, right? Like, nobody cares about all these different issues that are occurring across the world. I mean, but like just in the community, and like it's a dog eat dog world. We're expected to provide for ourselves and whatever, but then there's the lack of organization, yada. And what I said back was that that's definitely not true. I know it's not true because I believe human beings are pretty compassionate, and if you can see somebody suffering and you can help, you're going to, is what I believe. But I think that what we are lacking is resources, time, money, and really freedom in order to be able to actually apply any effort. There's know-how even. If you don't know how you can be of assistance towards a certain problem, if I don't know how to help that issue in my own way, what resources I can contribute even, then it's going to seem like I don't care, right? So anyway, to me, what seems like the biggest concern we have at this time is how much technology has separated us and removed the concept of the public space from an everyday thing. If you think back to 20 years ago, you would be going to the grocery store and seeing your neighbors every week in the world, right? But now we have Amazon, so you don't need to go to the grocery store ever. We have Facebook. You don't need to go to the park and see your friends. They're on Facebook. We have YouTube. You don't need to ask your friend what he thinks on this policy because you already know what you think. You have that answered on YouTube. Disclaimer, ironically enough, I got this idea from YouTube. Basically, we should regulate the Goliath of Silicon Valley and its implications on our lives. We should regulate that as if they are a utility who are providing the internet for society, right? Similar to what we did with AT&T back in the day to prevent them from monopolizing. And then all of a sudden, like, if they wanted us, you don't have phone service, we're going to cut you off from being able to call anybody. They'd be able to do that. Similar to how we have different people being censored these days. And then Facebook is judge, jury, and executioner on that. But what would be a more ethical version is if we had, say, an internet bill of rights is what we need. You should be tried by a jury of your peers in that same way.
That's very interesting. Funny how only when I hear a proposition such as yours, wherein it seems that public behavior on social media is institutionalized to the extent that it is part of the fabric of society. In terms of the extent to which social media can influence society itself, yeah, it does seem like there needs to be agreed upon social contract insofar as it establishes a moral code.
Yeah, and where I'm going to go from there is the name of the philosopher escapes me right now, but there is a freedom to and a freedom from. There are two different versions, positive freedom and negative freedom. So this I would want to be more of a freedom from oppression by the corporate internet companies. Say, since Facebook isn't censoring you, your peers are censoring you, and these are not elected officials. These are people who voluntarily say, like, okay, well, I volunteer to decide what's right and wrong because I don't want people censored, or I don't want people in my neighborhood posting racist stuff. And it'd be self-driven like that is idealistic, which Facebook has tried. They did trial versions of this, but it didn't pan out the way they did it, long story short. But at any rate, it is kind of dystopian if you think about the concept that Google no longer gives you results that are based upon the best match. Rather, it is advertising dollars that they give to Google, and then the algorithm takes care of a lot of that. But the algorithm used to simply be whatever best matched your query is going to appear first.
Honestly, I probably was thinking about that only 3 hours ago. The first 3 top results would say ad, and now it's the top 5. Certainly becoming more.
And they don't need more. If you're getting a bigger internet every day, you're getting a wider reach every day. You do not need to take more of my slice that I take up. You don't need more of that. You don't need me to see 10 instead of 5 instead of 3. You were making buku bucks before. So like why? Now, the most restrictive policies I would envision for a utility-based internet would be enforced against the companies, not the people.
That sounds definitely better to me.
Because they are responsible for what they do to it. If you do that and every 4th Facebook post is an ad, now you are impacting a wider range of people than somebody who's posting that they hate their country or whatever it is. It influences more people than Alex Jones, right?
It's funny that you say that, just because I had been thinking as you were speaking of the Capitol riots earlier this January, and also the recent 2 people crashing their car into a security gate that happened this week. If there is a way that people who support certain political ideologies can manipulate the presentation of information in such a way, using whatever ads they buy and whatever search engine optimization, if they can do that to cause a fucking invasion of the Congress, maybe they should have some kind of tax loss on the subject, or at least they should pay taxes for doing so, because that's just a much broader way of influencing the population to immediate action than any other utilities company can affect.
And they let it through. They let that happen. They had all the power in the world to nip it in the bud, and they didn't. So they obviously are not using their censorship privileges.
They do have a right to censor their own content.
They're obviously not capable. Yeah.
Politically reactionary things are profitable.
Oh, right. Yeah. Hosting outright porn is going to be more lucrative than trying to host a very difficult to understand idea, right? Like if I have a finer point on something, it's going to be not left, not right. You gotta come to the middle with me, guys. That's going to be harder to sell than rally against the libs. There's no rallying cry for coming to the middle. So it makes these platforms say that, yeah, it's a little extreme, but we want them to have a platform to see if that's going to work. I mean, it's working for us. We're getting ad dollars, you know.